Next guest is talking to us about the heat and your heart and how we can all stay safe during these very warm, sticky, hot, humid summer months. So joining us live this morning is Dr. Gregory Katz. He's a cardiologist with NYU Langone Health. Dr. Katz, good morning, and thank you for being on New York Living.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so first of all, it's very hot. It's very humid. Before we get into, I know we're going to talk to you about what we should and should not be eating, but what's the direct correlation between the heat and our heart specifically?
Yeah, so, high temperatures affect our body in lots of different ways. And when it comes to the heart specifically, our heart rates go up. Our skin is trying to make sweat. And so you need to get increased blood flow to your skin. And so you'll have a drop in your blood pressure sometimes. Your intestines get a little bit less blood flow. And so heavy meals can really cause some problems there. But in general, it's your heart rate goes up. And so it increases demand on your cardiovascular system.
Okay, well, there's a good, so let's talk about this. How do you know that you might be suffering from, say, heat exhaustion, heat stroke? And what's the difference between the two, right? Because you hear heat exhaustion and heat stroke.
So heat exhaustion and heat stroke exist on a spectrum. Heat stroke is a much more severe form of heat exhaustion. And the symptoms can be kind of nonspecific. So you might just sort of feel a little bit unwell. You might be a little bit nauseated. You might be dizzy. But the symptoms that you feel are going to be a little bit less, especially for our older folks. And so the older you are, the less well you regulate your temperature and the more likely you are to be dealing with heat stroke. And there's a couple of different types of medications that can actually increase our susceptibility to heat-related illness, like beta blockers or diuretic medications, which a lot of patients who are elderly and have cardiovascular problems tend to be on. And so this is the kind of thing where you really want to be a little bit more proactive and a little bit more cautious if you're on the older end of the spectrum, if you're on a number of medications, or if you have chronic medical conditions, which I think is generally good advice for lots of different situations.
Okay. And now we know that our diet is very important when it comes to heart health in general, but what are we doing to kind of shift, if at all, what we're taking in during the hotter days? Like, for example, we just had a donut with Taylor ham, egg, and cheese. I'm assuming that's a no.
Choice.
That's a no category for like
you're going to struggle to get any cardiologist to agree that a Taylor ham and on a donut is a good meal.
Yeah, ever, not just in the heat.
Period. Full stop.
Period. Full stop.
In general, yeah. But when it comes to really high temperatures, the things that I would pay attention to are the fact that your intestines get decreased blood flow, and that's going to mean that heavy meals might be problematic for you, or just causing indigestion and a feeling of an upset stomach. But things that hydrate you, so watermelon, fruits, vegetables, heavy amounts of alcohol are not going to be great. But in general, the diet advice for a hot day is not much different than the diet advice for regular day-to-day living, which is that most people know what junk food is, and eating too much of it is probably not all that good for you.
Right, but here's the thing, right? Number one on that list of foods to avoid was anything with caffeine. Let's be real. People drink caffeine all year, and so it's tough to kind of eliminate it on a very hot day, right? Because if you eliminate coffee for one day because of the caffeine, then you get a headache and so on and so forth. So what's your advice for me who's a coffee drinker? Because I'm going to do it on a 90 degree day.
You should enjoy a wonderful iced coffee on a hot day, but you should keep it to like a reasonable amount. And
3 or 4
I
cups,
wouldn't have 12 cups of coffee, but you could have 2 cups of coffee. I think that's totally fine.
Okay.
I mean, okay. So foods that are higher in salt, for example, should we stay away from those when it's hot? I mean, in general, I feel like I just don't even have an appetite when it's hot outside. I'm not sure what that is about.
Yeah, so super high salt is a little bit of a double-edged sword because on one hand, you're sweating more, and so you're losing sodium through that. But on the other hand, if you eat too much salt, that can have an impact on raising your blood pressure, and that's going to cause additional strain on an already strained cardiovascular system. So, in general, I think that eating moderate salt when it's hot out and you're sweating is probably a good idea.
Right, and then when do you get that bloated feeling? That's just any day.
You should seek medical attention.
But because I want to also stress the importance of just water, and I know you guys did a segment on this recently, but just the importance of, because you mentioned fruit. For somebody like me who doesn't like to drink water, like I just don't like physically drinking it, but you can get water from other things like a watermelon or other fruits, right?
Yeah, for the fruits, vegetables, whole foods tend to be really high in water content. And so if you're sticking with things that are on the unprocessed side, you're probably going to get a lot of your fluid consumption in just through the food that you're eating. But The people who need to pay the closest attention to this are the people who are older or who have a lot of chronic medical issues. For most of us, if we just listen to the cues that our body tells us, we're going to be totally fine. And so there are going to be times where even the people who don't like drinking water all that much feel really thirsty. And rather than ignoring that and trying to power through it, you should pay attention to what your body's telling you.
What do you think of that thing that like boosts water?
Electrolytes?
No, it's like a tablet that you drop in, and it's supposed to give you like a stronger take of water. I can't remember what it's called. None. Yeah, thank you.
That's
Do you know what I'm talking about?
electrolytes.
Oh, it is.
It's an electrolyte tablet, right?
It's an electrolyte tablet. And so people who have high blood pressure should probably be cautious with adding salt or any kind of stuff to their water. For most of us, it's totally fine. If you're a real athlete and you're doing a lot of sweating, then that's going to be really, really crucial for maintaining your performance. If you get a lot of muscle cramps, then you want to be thinking about maybe increasing your salt. But for most people, I kind of think those things are more a waste of money than anything else.
Just drink good old-fashioned water, Danny. Put some lemons in there.
Yeah.
Make it fun. But speaking of water, okay, I want to go back to that list that you had of things to avoid. Obviously, I mean, it's not rocket science. Alcohol, don't drink it. But if we are going to be drinking it anyway, should you be drinking more water? And also, what's your stance on how much water each individual should drink a day? Because I've always thought, like, you take your body in pounds, divide that in half, and that's how many ounces you should be drinking at a minimum. So how does the heat or being outside specifically factor into that whole thing?
Yeah, if you talk to a dozen people, you're going to get a dozen different tips on the amount of water that you should drink. In general, drinking water with each meal is probably a good idea. I wouldn't say there's any hard and fast rule of thumb. For a lot of people who enjoy alcohol on a hot day, myself included, it's not a bad idea to have a rule for yourself where every drink that you have outside, you follow it with a glass of water, just to make sure that you don't kind of fall behind the 8 ball when it comes to hydration, because alcohol is going to increase the amount that we urinate and is going to possibly just make us a little bit more prone to dehydration. But for some people, they respond really well to having a strict rule. You need to drink 64 ounces of water in a day. Other people respond better to general guidelines, so have 2 glasses of water like 3 times throughout the day. Other people just want to be kind of left alone and just listen to what their body needs. And so understanding how do you respond to rules as an individual is probably a good idea for how you set yourself up for success.
Yeah, once you tell me to take out a calculator to figure out the amount of water, I'm out. But here's a legit question. Is seltzer considered water because it has bubbly?
Yes.
Great. That's all I need to know.
Is it as hydrating as just drinking? If you have 8 ounces of water versus 8 ounces of a plain, or is there
You should think of them as totally equivalent, one-for-one replacement. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
I stand corrected.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Katz, thank you again for all of this insight, and thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks so much.
All right, stay cool.